What has changed so much from the 70s when I first began is the attitude of the law towards poor people. When I first started in Virginia in particular, there was very little protection in the common law for poor people and virtually no statutory protection for them.
Not having representation when you're involved in a civil legal issue typically means that you do not have access to justice.
There was absolutely nothing in the landscape that would help anyone who was suffering any kind of civil legal issue. A bunch of very far-seeing, visionary lawyers decided to volunteer. That was the first step, was just trying to group together, because they would sit in court and watch a pro se litigant just get slaughtered.
I think that people coming into legal services in this day and age would find that amazing, because there are statutes on every hand that give, for instance, tenant rights, a variety of consumer protections and rights that were just not available at first.
Judges had been reading about Legal Services Corporation in the news and saw LSC-funded programs at the time as troublemakers, as outside instigators, as revolutionaries.
There was a real concern that we were some kind of radical, rabble-rousing organization.
A sense that we were upsetting the apple cart because poor people here, not all by any means, but largely were people of color. Here are these upstart legal aid lawyers going in and trying to prevent landlords from putting black people, essentially, out of these houses.
We were a curiosity and sometimes met with some hostility.
Those initial legal aid lawyers like Henry Woodward here in Virginia, Henry McLaughlin at Central Virginia Legal Aid, and Jill Hankin at Virginia Poverty Law Center, they were a good reason for the powers that be at the time to be concerned, because they were serious, they were committed, brought an idealism to their work that was extraordinary.
In the late 70s when I started, we were out recruiting new attorneys for positions at our legal aid program.
Hiring staff, renting offices, expanding, opening in new places. It was just really exciting. There was an election and everything went to hell. And then we were under siege for the next 8 years. We're just fighting for survival.
Reagan sort of put forth, he and people like Rush and Limbaugh sort of put forth this idea that everybody who's poor somehow deserves it.
That's when we needed to start doing more organizing and coalition building to protect programs and services that people needed. We would present our list of organizations to legislators, and it makes a big difference. You can't do these things by yourself.
Every time we raised a bona fide simple defense based on a statute or a rule of court, we were disrupting their docket, we're slowing the docket down. We weren't seen as just another lawyer doing our job.
It was so hard to find a handle or a defense because there were no statutory bases for that, and very few ways that you could bring an affirmative action to correct something that was wrong.
There was a big push for an equal rights amendment. Focusing on that in a very conservative area was a challenge.
We did a lot of federal litigation because the federal courts were more open to looking freshly at the law.
Gradually they realized that we were performing a valuable service. The lawyers began to realize that it was better to have a lawyer on the other side than an unrepresented person on the other side.
They have made cuts to programs, they have put restrictions on the scope of work that attorneys and paralegals can do, but nevertheless, legal aid survives.
Things have gotten better for low-income people in this country. Lower rate of elderly poverty, of child poverty, poverty overall, more people getting food assistance, health insurance, somewhat more people getting housing assistance, although all those areas need dramatic improvement.
For any family, let alone a low-income family, to have healthy parents being able to raise healthy children, I see that as a staple of public health and being able to get yourself out of poverty.
Are we like what we were 50 years ago? In many ways, our DNA is still there, working against the system and, trying really hard. All of that is a consistent thread, but I like to think that we are doing things in a different, more innovative way now.
I think ultimately we all feel the same thing. We want to help people the best way that we can. This is why we're here, because we know that the work that we do makes a difference in the lives of people.
This kind of work is essential. I've seen administrations that were so adversarial. So I've seen the pendulum go back and forth, back and forth. The pendulum will swing, and when it does swing in a positive way, you've got to do as much as you possibly can.